Hi everyone, my name is Jill Calvin. I'm with Post University and this is course EQU 403 Equine Senior Seminar, and I'm happy to be here sharing with you the creating and making of my senior project, The Health of a Horse's Back, the workbook, and this is the prototype right here. This project actually started out in my mind as a poster for the wall of a barn or an arena, and the poster would show pictures of exercises and stretches that somebody could do with their horse in the arena, and also a pamphlet would go with it that people could pick up and put in their pocket and take with them. But thanks to a suggestion from my professor Armand, I ended up creating this workbook instead, which contains all of my original ideas, and it contains 3 sections. One section is stretching, the second section is the exercises, and the third section is about points on saddle fit. So once I was clear on what I wanted to create, our first assignment in Unit 1 of this course was to create a project plan for ourselves. Part of this project plan was to create a schedule over the next 6 weeks that will bring us to this point. And the schedule was a pretty tight schedule. We had to take pictures, I had to decide what verbiage I was going to use, and put together a notebook and a new program that I hadn't used before. It turned out to be Word notebook, which was still pretty hard to get to use. I'd never used it before. And I feel like my project evolved very much in line with the original project plan that I had written in Unit 1. I kept myself close to the weekly task schedule, which worked out to be, quite accurate, and it was very helpful. My husband took pictures, and we were lucky enough to have several nice sunny days in which we had some successful photo shoots. My horse was very cooperative for us, which is always a plus. Once we got the photos, then I had to edit them and then transfer them to my computer, and then the third step was to transfer them to where I wanted them spaced into the program, the workbook program. So rather than doing a 2 or 3 hour stints a couple of times a week, I worked on my project almost every day. I didn't allow myself to procrastinate, and by using the little and often approach, I felt like I kept my mind fresh and on target, and continue to this point where we're doing the presentation. So in the beginning, we all did a literature review, which is very helpful. My literature review is a great way to get my project started. One of the things I mentioned was I talked about how it's been 75 years now since the end of World War II. And that's kind of when the leisure horse industry got back into its flow after the war. People started riding again, and it started to make its comeback, but it's only within the last 40 years that mobile saddle fitters, mobile equine chiropractors and massage therapists have been accessible to those who even know enough about them to request a visit. And so it's been slow, it's not very well recognized still. It is becoming more popular, and I think this is, knowing what I know, this is why I wanted to produce this workbook to the people who are not on a professional riding team, who can't afford a team of these experts. This is all of my experience put together to give them a little focus on and to develop a 45-minute to an hour routine. I found that the experts agreed that once you have developed your horse's strong, healthy back, an ill-fitting saddle can quickly reverse all the hard work and in fact can create immediate and lasting damage to muscles, ligaments, and the circle of movement with the horse. The last section of my workbook contains an 8-point saddle fit check that everybody can do in their barn on their own time, and really spend some time getting to know their horse's back, and now they know what points to look for, they'll be more educated in being able to tell if it's pinching the withers or if it's too long on the loins. However, I always recommend having a professional saddle fitter come and validate your saddle fit opinion. My project strategy was to follow the timeline schedule I prepared in Unit 1. I knew that if I fell behind, I would be stressed out, and it would show in my work. So as for my project work and results, here's the workbook so far. Let's have a look at the workbook. So once I got it into print, of course, there's a few things that showed up, and this is obviously not centered. It will be. And this is just the legal kind of page. Then I talked about myself as the author. It's always fun to know I'm from England and I've had horses my whole life. I started off with a natural horsemanship kind of focus and like to continue that. Even though dressage is very valuable, I still have a problem with all the bits and so on, but that's not what this book is about. Section 1 is stretching. I did a little brief introduction onto how, when and why to stretch before exercise and after exercise. And you'll see on all of the pages on the left hand side there's notebooks. It's kind of, this is not so much for journaling but more for notes. And then so when you start doing these exercises again, there's not a whole lot of verbiage, because I do want to encourage people to go to the experts to get more in-depth, but this is the basics of how to do these stretches and what muscles they attack. And then this side is for the notes for the people once they've found a good method to, sometimes like this is the carrot stretch, sometimes remember don't forget to bring carrots, or I started off at shoulder level on this one, and then the next week he's now up at my head level. Progression notes like that. Shoulder extension stretch. This is, again, you'd be very careful always around your horse, but these are very simple stretches. It's a great way to bond with your horse, make notes of how far you went. Hip extension stretches, back legs, be very careful. Start off very slow and move your way up. Again, notes this side. Tail stretch. Fun for us, but again, be very careful. Always read what your horse is telling you. The back lift, this one, see how his back's nice and straight. Section 2, strengthening exercises. Anything that you can do to get your horse to lift his back. This one is the wagon wheel. It's in a circle, makes him stand up straight, makes him look where he's putting his feet, and you see how the back is arched. It's such a good exercise. Just so the walk and the trot. If you do the canter, make sure he's very confident at the walk and trot first. This is just on how to measure out the poles for a flat work. Cavaletti, it gives you some height. You can see his back is even straighter now. He's using his abdominal muscles to bring up. The Cavaletti has 3 different heights. Backing is, rather than stand in front of your horse, shaking the rope in his face, stand beside him, ask him for head down, and then move back, and he will mirror you. Only step 10 steps, and rest. Excuse me. Stop it. My Rottweilers. The pelvic tilt, I drew in some arrows either way, so you get motion there. And another one, same thing, pushing the energy towards the shoulders. And then section 3 is saddle fit. This, of course, is my favorite part. You've got 8 steps that I chose. Of course, Johann Schliess has like a 90-step process, but this is just the 8 ones that we can do at home in our barn or in the arena with a clearance not only up top but also in the sides, very important. Full panel contact must be along from the withers to the back, and this is almost the same thing for the Western saddle. You want to have full panel contact, no bridging, no rocking. The billets on an English saddle need to fall straight down. Of course, in a Western saddle it's a little different, but it's the same concept. The length of the saddle should never go past T18, which is if you get the last rib, you can follow it up and just put some little stickers. I've put some stickers around here, so when you actually put your saddle on his back, you can easily see that it's within the area that's called the saddle seat. Straightness. Horses are usually weaker on one side than the other. So in this case, it is okay to shim up very slightly, but not too much. Again, if you see that you have a big difference, you'll need to call a professional saddle fitter. So the angle, not the width, but the angle should match the angle of the horse's shoulder. You can see this one's a good fit there. And then conclusion, so general recap and keep going. And then this is the last of the notebook, is the journal, where you can document your journey and notes and thoughts and ideas. And that's the prototype of the workbook so far. My project, I found I hope that it will add value to the industry. It may be small, but it's very valuable. The everyday equestrian doesn't have experts, and so I wanted to get this book out to more people so they can become more confident to stretch, exercise, and have a good fitting saddle at home. And also, as I said, it's a good exercise to strengthen the bond between you and your horse. The value of this project for my future professional life, once I've graduated from post-university, I'll be attending the Johann Schliess Saddle Fitting School in Canada to gain my certification as an equine ergonomist, aka saddle fitter. And I think this finished project, the finished product of this notebook will be a great addition to my business, and I'd love to have it finished properly and published and distributed, and I think being able to give these out from my every visit that I go to will be helpful to a lot of people. So when we lived in the Pacific Northwest, I owned and managed my own horse boarding facility, and there in Seattle it's often grey and rainy. And on those days, I would see my horse owner boarders working with their horses in the arena, not really sure of what to do with them. They would lunge them, brush them as much as they could because they were wet. They'd do some groundwork and stand around and chat and maybe do some walk or trot in the saddle. And me also being one of them, it's sometimes hard to think of what to do with the horses. So I think this is a really good productive way to learn to do some stretches and some exercises, and then play around with your saddle before you walk and trot and canter. This is a 45 to a minute hour that's, if you have nothing else to do, you can definitely make a really good routine out of this little book. Now more than ever, equestrians are becoming aware of the importance of keeping your riding horse's back healthy, and all of it, and anything we can do at home in our barns is going to help improve their comfort and well-being, and also improve our ride. So I hope when it's finished you find it on Amazon, and thank you and happy trails.